Hi class, welcome back to Electromagnetics. So we're going to continue in part 5 of the course, looking at electromagnetic waves and how they propagate in various mediums and materials. And so today we're going to look at a little closer, now that we've got a solution, general solution to Maxwell's equations, what this looks like more in general in dielectrics and conductors. First, a quick historical background. This one's a little different than the other ones that we've done so far. The earliest reference to this, it's a thing, not a person. It's from Greek mythology, thought of as a pure essence of God's breath. There's even mentions to this, or references to this from Plato. And it's been tossed around even up till the time of Einstein. He even argued had some arguments and discussions about the existence of this. Of course, there's no picture, but what we're talking about is ether, the mysterious ether. What's the significance of ether? Well, we've seen that electromagnetic propagation can be described as propagating waves, and we know from classical mechanics that in order for a wave to propagate, it must have a medium, like water. When you throw a stone in water, you see the waves propagating in the water. What do electromagnetic waves propagate in? The reason we ask is because they still work in a vacuum. They work throughout space. They work no matter, basically anywhere. So one explanation from times past is that there is an undetectable ether that is everywhere. So the significance of this is ultimately Einstein argued against it, and but the question still remains. It was not 100% resolved, and it actually was a little bit of an introduction into some of his discussions on relativity and the idea of relativity. There's some historical references to that. If you're interested, you can read about that. But there is a plausible explanation given about the medium in string theory that light waves are from a medium in a higher dimension. And so this is kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but the mathematics kind of play out right now, the best we can tell. And according to the mathematical models we have, it would suggest that light could be propagating in some medium that's in like the 7th dimension. So again, lots of material out there about this if you want to read about it. It's all theory at this point, but it's still some pretty interesting things to think about. So again, we're in the 4th lecture of part 5, uniform plane waves in dielectrics and conductors. So now that we have general expressions for the propagation constants and other parameters for fields in terms of material characteristics, we now want to take a look at some special cases or classes of material media and examine the effects of these conditions on the fields and their parameters. So we're going to utilize the findings from the previous lecture where we solved Maxwell's equations using the wave equation approach with all the different possible attributes or effects, that is, conduction, polarization, and magnetization accounted for. So the first medium we want to consider is that of a perfect dielectric. So this is a theoretical object, to be sure, but in a perfect dielectric, there's some materials that are very close to being perfect. The conductivity there would be 0. There would be no conduction. So then this translates to the following. Our attenuation constant would be 0. If you go back and look at that equation for that in the previous lecture, if we set sigma equal to 0, then alpha would be 0. Our phase constant would be reduced to this equation here. Our phase velocity and our wavelength, again, clean up here a little bit. And then finally, our eta function reduces to this. So it's our intrinsic impedance is what that'll be. So if you're working with a perfect dielectric or close to perfect dielectric, you can see that the equations do simplify quite a bit here. So next we want to consider an imperfect dielectric. So in these types of mediums, we still will have some conduction, but the driving force will be the polarization. So we would say that this term here, the magnitude of this term here, which is driven by the polarization, is significantly larger than this term here, which is driven by the conduction. So in this case, you would see the primary force governing what's going on in the material is the polarization. Another way to look at this is that this term here, the conductivity divided by the frequency times the permittivity, would be much, much less than 1. So when that happens, the same parameters we just looked at would be defined this way. Attenuation constant would now become this. So this simplifies this a little bit. It's still a little bit tricky, but it does shore up some things here. And again, our phase constant will shore up here and have this form as well. These are approximations, but they're pretty close. Phase velocity reduces to this, and wavelength, and then finally intrinsic impedance would reduce to this. So if you feel like you're dealing with, or you do the numbers and find out that this does fall in the category of an imperfect dielectric, then you can use these equations here. Now, we've kind of already looked at perfect conductor, and we'll look at it again some more later, but with a perfect conductor, sigma, of course, will go to infinity, or approach infinity. But there's no such thing really as a perfect conductor, so we can look at very good conductors. So in these types of mediums, then just the opposite is true. The conducting aspect of the material is a much greater driver in what's going on, or the way the electromagnetic wave interacts with the medium, than the polarization. You may still have some polarizing effects, but for the most part it's driven by the conduction. So here you see that the conduction is much greater than 1. So if that's the case, our parameters will then translate here. And again, this cleans up quite a bit as well. So our attenuation constant reduces to this equation, phase constant, and then our phase velocity, wavelength, and then finally our intrinsic impedance. It can be approximated in this way. So due to the attenuation related to conductors, there is a phenomenon related to this that is known as a skin depth. So a skin depth is the distance into a conductor that the field is attenuated by a factor of 1 over E, or 1 over Euler's constant. And so the skin depth then is officially defined as this equation here, 1 over the square root of pi times the frequency times the permeability times the conductivity. And so this gives us the depth at which the field is attenuated by a factor of 1 over E. One thing that's interesting to note when looking at this function of frequency is that it's a function of frequency. So since the field is attenuated as it penetrates the material, this indicates that the concentration of the field is near the skin of the conductor. Hence, this is called the skin effect. One thing that's worth noting here, though, is for a perfect conductor, that is, again, when sigma is approaching infinity, that the skin depth goes to 0. And so this implies then that there's no penetration of the field into a perfect conductor. And this should make sense, because as soon as that field comes in contact with a perfect conductor, that's going to translate into current flow. So it's going to cause electrons to start flowing. So the field's not going to really be present anymore. It's going to be translated into current conducting in the perfect conductor. We'll see later that this is kind of what happens with antennas when you receive a signal on an antenna. Let's look at a quick example. So we're going to consider that a material can be classified as a dielectric when this ratio that we talked about is less than 0.1, and compute the values of several propagation parameters for three materials. And we're going to look at mica, we're going to look at dry earth, and seawater. So denoting the frequency for which this ratio is equal to 1 as FQ, it's equal to sigma over 2 pi epsilon, assuming that sigma and epsilon are independent of frequency, and that's not always the case. Values for several parameters are shown for these materials on the following table. Many compared to the values of these parameters at given frequencies in free space. So here's our table for these three materials, and again with this frequency here is what we're defining as the cutoff for when it starts to act like a dielectric. And so here's the conductivity for these materials, our relative permittivity, and then here's that frequency. So you can see here 3 times 10 to the minus 2. At this point, this is when this frequency and higher is when it starts to act like a dielectric. And then so you look at something down like at seawater, quite different. You have to get up pretty high. So some things that are worth noting here. Mica behaves as a dielectric for almost any frequency, because I mean this is getting close to DC here, right? 3 times 10 to the minus 2. So anything above that is going to be looking like a dielectric. Seawater is only considered a dielectric above about 10 GHz. That's about X band. So below that, it's not a good dielectric. I don't know if it's necessarily always a good conductor, but we wouldn't be able to use those assumptions for something like seawater below 10 GHz. Low value of alpha makes mica a good dielectric. So you can see this alpha value is very, very low. It's not so much for seawater. Seawater has pretty high attenuation constant there.